I love redrawing my old artwork since it's a way for me to see how far I've come. I've been drawing the same night-themed cat every year, and this is my fourth year doing it. The original drawing I did when I was about 13 in 2022. That simultaneously feels really recent and like it was forever ago. I remember I was actually really proud of it when I first drew it. I even framed it up on the wall for a while, but looking back, I definitely don't feel the same way. It looks like I was pressing way too hard with the colored pencil, so the texture looks really flat, despite the fact that I was actually going for a more realistic look. The contrast from the background isn't the best, and the eye shape's weird. The head's way too round, but I could go on, but you get the point. This one I drew when I was 14, and it does look slightly better and a lot fluffier, but it still really looks like I overblended the colors because they seem kind of muddy. The shadow on the chest especially doesn't blend well. I was still pressing way too hard, and I did not sharpen my pencils for sure. And I remember, like, right after adding the background, I actually regretted it a bit, since the clouds here are just really distracting, and I honestly think it looked better without the background. But I do really like the fluffiness, so that's actually something I'm going to bring back in my newest drawing. This is the third and the most recent version I did when I was around 15. I don't hate it quite as much as the others, though there are quite a few things that bother me. Besides the fact that I gave up on drawing a background, it looks a lot more close to the original, being a more short-furred cat, and I did bring back the collar, which I really like, and that's actually something I'm going to keep. I can definitely see the much finer detail that went into the fur, since I did actually bother to sharpen my pencils this time, but I think I can do even better. I tried to be mindful of the proportions during the sketching stage, since the face seemed too round on the previous version. I made sure to use several different images of real cats for reference. I decided to make the eyes yellow instead of blue this time, since it's a complementary color to purple, and it'll give a much sharper contrast from the fur. One thing I've learned is to always press lightly and slowly build up the color as I go. This makes the piece appear a lot more three-dimensional, as well as giving me much more control, since colored pencil is pretty difficult to erase. Fur direction is incredibly important, since it's going to change and distort depending on the direction and also the shape of the part that it's covering. This is why it's really important to look at reference images. go from lightest to darkest, so I start off with cream and pink, light purples, light blue, and then slowly build my way towards the darker purples and blues. One thing I noticed with my previous drawings is that the fur never looked natural. Making purple fur look natural is difficult because I don't really have a reference to go off of. Looking back, I figured that the problem might actually just be the lack of variation in the fur. Looking at real animal fur, you can see that the fur has a lot of natural variation. So the same concept should apply to drawing unnaturally colored fur, which is why instead of using exclusively blues and cool purples, I started off with warmer undertones, such as cream and pink this time. Once I finish layering most of the colors in the area I'm working in, I go back over with the lighter shades of purple to help bring everything together, and then I finish off by adding in white and black very sparingly in order to make the texture pop out more, as well as adding in stripes. It's especially important to press very lightly when dealing with black since it's easy to mess up and make it too dark. I layered on more darker blues and indigos towards the edge of the face in order to create a subtle gradient. I made sure to add some of the purple I added to the fur to the pink parts of the ear in order to make the whole thing more cohesive, so that the pink parts of the ear don't pop out more than I want them to. I was a little nervous moving on to the chest fur since I was pretty happy with how the face turned out and I didn't really want to ruin it, and drawing white fur is hard. Though one thing I have learned is that rather than shade white exclusively with gray, use a lot of other colors too. Since the shadows here are cool toned, I used a lot of blues and the yellowy tan color for the brighter portions. I also mixed in a lot of the colors from the fur so it would seem more cohesive with the rest of the piece. It's important to remember that white fur is rarely ever pure white, especially if the lighting is not very bright like it is here. Fur almost always has a curve to it. It rarely ever sticks straight out, and this is especially the case with longer fur. I feel like in last year's drawing, the cat's collar looked pretty flat, and I think a lot of that is due to the fact that I wasn't really thinking of it as a three-dimensional object. So this time I made sure to remember that each of the spikes is going to be a little bit rounded, so it's going to be darker towards the edges and paler towards the middle. It's also, the cat's collar as a whole is also going to do that because it's kind of wrapping around the cat's head, and the cat itself, like its head, is going to be casting a shadow on the collar. So the top part will be darker. The individual gems are also going to be casting a slight shadow. Moving on to the body, I use the same method, starting off with beige and slowly working my way up to darker colors. Due to the gradient, I add a lot more blue color towards the lower portions, but I still added to the purple fur too for the darker portions, like in between the fur where the shadows are. One of the biggest things I've learned so far is to pay attention to the shadows within the fur, rather than laying the colors all evenly over the cat. Where the fur overlaps, it'll cast a shadow on the fur below it, which is incredibly important in making a piece look more 3D. I still think I could have done a better job with this, but I've definitely improved. This is also another reason it's really important to use reference images. It doesn't quite look the way I'd imagined it, since some aspects still look a little off to me, but I'm still really proud of how it turned out. It looks a lot more three-dimensional and realistic, which is what I was going for. The yellow eyes also pop out really well, which I love. Overall, I'm actually really happy with it. Thank you so much for watching, and please feel free to leave any feedback or constructive criticism, as I've still got a lot to learn.